Welcome everyone who's watching. So did you guys grow up with this show before we get started? Just a little preamble,
No,
or was this something you came into later?
I came into this way later. In fact, I actually only watched through the entire show, I think last year. I was more, it wasn't, I think it was on, or it had started to wrap up airing around when I was born, honestly. So, um, I more grew up with the animated series just because I had the DVDs, but I didn't really get around to this show until later.
Okay.
Yeah, I remember really liking this when I was little, though I didn't see much of it. What I primarily grew up on was my dad recorded the two-part pilot that we're about to watch off TV, so I had that on VHS just recorded, and we also had a copy of Return of the Joker. So these two things I watched religiously growing up many, many times. The rest of the show, I just caught whatever bits and pieces of it I could when it was on TV. It's like slightly kind of before my time, or I was like really little when this is on the air, but I primarily grew up with the pilot and the Joker movie. It wasn't until I got the whole series on DVD that I was like years later when I went through most of it. But yeah, I always really liked it, or I always really liked what I was able to see of it, and I think it holds up. Like it's obviously, as we'll discuss later, very dated, late '90s, early 2000s in some areas, but I think that adds to its charm rather than its detriment. That's just my opinion. You guys may disagree. But yeah, I really like the show.
Um, so I remember when this was on, but I only saw what it was on available on VHS tape at the time that I knew of anyway. So it was the Batman Beyond movie, if you remember that, which is just like the two-part pilot, and I think the third episode.
Yeah, it's like another episode just thrown on there to
And
add running
then
time.
the one that I watched the most was Return of the Joker, because I mean it's the Joker, obviously. Um,
Yeah.
I don't
I,
disagree with you that this is very much of its time. I don't think that's a bad thing, except I think that's what makes it hard to bring this back because I don't know. Austin kind of pointed this out, and I don't think he's wrong. I don't know what appeal this would have to general audiences besides like us that grew up with it.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think a modern version wouldn't lean into that more 90s kind of like feel. I think they would update that a little bit, but I don't
But
know.
I
I
do
think
think
you
there
could
is an argument to be made that that kind of loses the identity a little bit.
I don't know. I think I'd have to see it to see.
All right. Does everybody have their episode up to timestamp 0? Anyway, Batman Beyond, Return of the Joker is long enough to count as a film, but I don't think that the first episodes are long enough to be a film. I mean, that's because Return of the Joker is a film.
Yeah, Return of the Joker is the movie, but the Batman Beyond the movie is just the
It's
first two
3
episodes that are
episodes.
edited together. Yeah.
Well, I think
So
it's the first 3. It's not just the first 2. That's why I always think that
okay.
this is a 3-part pilot, but it's not. All
It's not.
right. It's not. All right. Sorry, I got sidetracked. So everybody has it up to timestamp 0?
Yes.
Yep. Ready to go.
All right. In 3, 2, 1, play. And the timer timestamp will also be on the stream. I have uh, set that up so it should be counting down. So one thing I have a beef with Voodoo on this is it says long after Batman has retired, Bruce Wayne has retired as Batman. He's not even retired at the beginning of the pilot.
That is correct.
Oh, okay. So Anime Fan says he also had the Beyond the movie, but it was just 2 episodes. Maybe I'm misremembering.
Well, he says the DVD had 6 episodes, so I don't know. I never had either of those copies growing up.
But is the other episode part of the movie, or is it just the movie is just the first two parts just stitched together? And then they have other episodes as special features or something like that.
So I love the Beyond suit. I think it looks great.
Yeah.
Even
Mm.
in this art style, even on the bulkier like Bruce Wayne model.
Yeah, I love that we're just thrown into just this little adventure with him in this suit way late in his career. He's going to save the daughter of Veronica Vreeland. That's a nice little Easter egg for fans of the animated series. And then, of course, things are about to go badly for him, and we see why he quits. But I always wish we got more of just like this era of Bruce. Like, I get why we did it. We don't need more excessive flashbacks. I just think like this little window into this chapter of his life is really cool, and I just want more, but like in a good way.
I mean, I don't disagree. I think that maybe it's what the comic should have been instead of trying to awkwardly cram Terry McGinnis into the DC universe. Anime says the DVD has the other episodes. Has the other episode?
That's what I thought. I mean,
Okay.
I don't know. I never had that DVD, so I don't know what it was like. So
I also never had the DVD.
Do you guys buy that Bruce would be pushed this far to consider even picking up a gun?
Yes.
Yes, especially at his age.
Yeah, it's entirely about the physical limitations.
I do. I mean, I buy it, but I'm also, part of me is like, this is the same Batman that like hates guns in the animated series, so it's a little.
But I mean,
strange to think
that's.
about.
But I mean, that's. They don't forget that. Like he immediately is like disgusted with himself.
Yeah, I know that they don't forget it, but it's like, it's strange to think that he would even pick it up in the first place. But still, I think it still works.
My only problem with this show is I don't like the idea of none of the Bat family likes him anymore. Like when we get into later stuff with other members of that of kind of the Bat family, it seems nobody can stand him.
I don't know. I buy it because I think the thing with the kind of point that they're making is like Barbara and Dick, and you don't really see Dick in this show, but they all kind of have a life, whereas for Bruce, like his life is Batman. So
I mean, I don't necessarily think it doesn't make sense. It's just I don't know. I like a Bat family that like is a family.
Yeah, but you can have a falling out with your family.
Yeah. Well, and I think as a continuation of New Batman Adventures specifically, it works. Because that kind of lays a lot of the groundwork for why him and Dick had their falling out, but also some of his issues, Bruce going darker and kind of pushing people away. And of course, later in the Joker movie, we'll see what happened to Tim. But as a continuation of that, I think it tracks, even if it's not my favorite.
Yeah.
We talked over it, but how do you guys feel about those opening credits?
So good, love it.
Really cool.
Really sets like the tone for the show.
Yeah,
Anime Batman grabbing the gun makes sense to me because he was in a desperate situation. All I see ends up not using the gun on anybody. Yeah, exactly. He was in a desperate situation, and he immediately is disgusted with himself.
And I wanted to mention that in that situation, he is saving an innocent young woman. Like, if he was just fighting bad guys, like I don't know if he goes that far, but like there's someone there he needs to save, so I can roll with that extreme. And like you said, like he doesn't use it, like he doesn't shoot him.
So this has a lot of.
I was just had mixed feelings about it, but I do think it makes sense.
So this I think ends up having a lot of Marvel influence, but the talking heads are very Miller, Dark Knight Returns, which you go to an older Batman.
Mm-hmm. Well, and also that's the first time you ever see an older Batman who's not talking to Dick Grayson anymore. Except in that book, Jim Gordon's still alive, and in this show, like he's dead. Like that's what makes this even sadder than Dark Knight Returns is like Gordon's dead, Alfred's dead, and everyone else has just kind of moved on with their lives. So like it's sad, but I get why this Bruce is in this place at this point in time.
Anime fan says it's weird that Dick Grayson's never in the series. The closest thing that he gets to screen time is a check. I agree. I don't know if it's a problem for just if you're just looking at the TV show because the only one that's in it is Barbara, and the way that she's in it is like an organic like and cameo role or like lesser role. She's the new Gordon, but I think it gets weirder when you take into consideration Return of the Joker, which brings in Tim Drake. So like Dick is the only one that's never mentioned.
Yeah, he's mentioned a couple times. That's it. And yeah, that ticks me off. It's kind of baffling to me that the show goes 3 seasons and we never get one episode with him. Like, I don't know if they just never had a take or just never wanted to. That's a personal beef I have with the show. The show's great, but yeah, I'm annoyed that he never.
Well, and it's even worse when you
It
look
is
at
such a
those
missed
original.
opportunity.
And it's even worse when you look at those original comics. It's the only thing they can think of is, well, he's the new Hush, maybe.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think the episode where you see the jacket with DG on it is one of the ones that we chose, so we might get to it tonight.
So they got Eric Friedel, I think that's his name.
Will Friedle.
Will Friedle. Sorry, I mixed up Will Friedle with his character on Boy Meets World, Eric Matthews. But no, and I don't know of anybody else that could play this character. I saw that Infinite Crisis Part 2 was out, and I think that's where they bring all this stuff back. So I might watch that. I'm kind of nervous though.
I've heard he's in like one scene.
I mean, I kind of assumed that all those cameos that they were kind of hyping up would be like the CW version, where it's like, well, I mean, it's a cameo. They're not going to do anything.
It's literally a cameo. Like, yeah, they're not going to do anything in those scenes.
It's really impressive how they managed to update Gotham and kind of some of the designs, but it also still looks like the animated series. Like, you can tell this is that same world.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh my god, that guy's got smallpox.
Oh. Here's George Takei. You're playing a character.
Yeah, he's
Is
like
that-
a.
That actually George. Oh, okay, interesting.
Yeah, that's him.
He's like a straight up Bond villain, like a Bond henchman. He's great.
Yeah.
And yeah, there's really cool Easter eggs to the old shows without being egregious, like the high school, Hamilton High School, named after Mayor Hamilton Hill. Arguably a terrible mayor, but give that guy credit. He was kidnapped and tortured many times and never left, so I'll always give him respect for that.
No, Derek Powers is such a missed opportunity in the show because they really, from recollection, they really only spend one season with him, and after that, they kind of just drop him.
Well, he gets an ending at the end of season 1, so that's better than nothing. Like, he does get an ending. I'm fine with dropping him for a while, but yeah, it is a shame that they never brought him back or never had the time to bring him back. Cause
you would think they would, because they kind of set it up like he would be, Terry's Joker, or
he's basically the Norman Osborn to his
Peter Parker. And this is a very Spider-Man take on Batman.
I mean, this is basically Spider-Man with a Batman coat of paint, which is fine. It's still good.
Yeah, I mean, I like Spider-Man. I like Batman. Anime says, I feel like Jim Gordon deserved to have a school named after him more than Hamilton Hill. Yeah, but that's just not how life works.
That's not really how politics works, unfortunately.
Yep.
With the Spider-Man thing, it does get egregious later because there's just a straight-up Kraven the Hunter ripoff character later.
Well, I don't know if it's on the list, but I did watch a few episodes I was hoping to get through most of the show so I could contribute more to the list. But do you guys remember that episode where they just straight up do the Fantastic Four, but they're the villains?
Yeah. Yes. I like that episode. I forgot about it.
It was better than I thought it would end up being.
Yeah. Is that one of the ones you picked?
No, I picked.
Okay.
I went. Most of the stuff I picked is in 2 and 3 because Robert. I don't know who picked what, but you two picked like half of season 1.
Yeah, the thing about that is I think the first 2 seasons are probably the best seasons of the show.
The only one I remember that I picked is I did pick the one where Superman comes back because I was curious.
Oh yeah. Oh. Okay.
We left that one off because it was a 2-parter.
Right. Yeah.
I put that back on there.
Well,
we'll see.
Okay. Well,
if we land on it, we land on it.
2-parter, then sure.
If we land on it, we land on it.
Yeah. I mean, that's a great episode. I initially picked that, but then I decided.
Okay, we will go until we can't go any longer. But let's not worry about like 2-parters, this or that. Just pick episodes you want to do.
Okay. I was just for the sake of variety. I didn't want to.
Yeah.
Do like.
Now I will say, if we get it right after this, I would probably respin it.
Also respin
But if we
it,
get
yeah.
it like in 3 or 4 episodes down the line, that's fine.
Yeah, what I predict happening is we're gonna get several episodes in, and there will be like 2 episodes that like we really want to do, and we're like, I just keep spinning till we get that one. Like,
No,
that
so I'm gonna put a rule: we will not respin unless we get the 2-parter like right after a 2-parter.
Yeah.
If we land on an
Yeah,
episode, we have to do that episode.
I'm pretty sure in my initial list that was the one season 3 episode I picked. This is the only one I really cared about.
Anime fan says, I think that if Derek Powers came back, they could have had him and his son Paxton compete against each other. I mean,
Yeah, they bring his son back once or twice. They don't do much that interesting with him.
So that's very Batman and Robin. The bikes, like skidding.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
I don't remember who it was that told me, but I know that the show kind of made a big deal of like trying not to rely on the old Batman's rogues gallery. But it is a little weird that some of the first people he runs against, like that one dude, just looks like the Joker.
Well, yeah, it's the Joker gang. They're inspired by the Joker, which I think is a pretty cool choice instead of just having the Joker in the show.
I don't disagree, but I don't know if they should just straight up be like the Joker in design.
Yeah, I mean that's a good point. Yeah,
his face paint's a little different, like the way they do his mouth.
Barely.
It is weird.
He's kind of wearing a mask. It looks like.
Yeah, it's really weird.
It's strange.
I like it.
And that guy just said, "Let's put a smile on his face," exactly like how Heath Ledger.
I love that in this scene, Batman is the equivalent of the old man yelling at the young kids to get off his lawn.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, except he's Batman, so he beats the shit out of him.
Yeah. You guys remember when there was a push to have Clint Eastwood play this version of Bruce?
That could have been cool.
I heard about that for The Dark Knight Returns, but not Batman
CG
Beyond.
anime fan. I really like the Joker's leader that Bruce Timm voiced.
Yep.
Oh, maybe that was for Returns? That doesn't work for Returns for me. You need a bigger Batman for Returns.
No, yeah. I think he could, acting wise, I think he could pull it off, but physically he's not bulky enough.
Stephen Lang might be too old now, but I think that would have been a good choice. That's a big guy.
I mean, he's not my favorite, but like the obvious pick was Keaton. He was right there.
Yep.
Yeah.
But
for either Returned or Beyond.
If they still do that animated Batman Beyond movie, they could have Keaton voice Bruce.
I'm so sad that movie's not happening. Those screenshots were perfect.
Great. Well, it looks so.
I was gonna say this earlier. Like, if ever there was a property to just rip off the Spider-Verse movie, but do the Batman adjacent, like Batman Beyond's the obvious choice. And it looks really cool. So earlier we were talking about like, well, would this appeal to kids today? It's like, I don't know, kids like the Spider-Verse movies. You just do a Batman future movie that looks like that. Like, I think they'd be into it.
Yeah, I think.
Well, and it just baffles me because like you look at the Spider-Verse movies and then you think about like if you're a DC, wouldn't you want a slice of that pie?
Yep.
Because those movies got Oscar buzz, didn't they?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
The first one won Best Animated Feature.
Yeah, and to clarify for people who don't know, that wasn't just like a shameless Spider-Verse ripoff. No, those were people who worked on the Spider-Verse movies pitching that Batman Beyond movie to Warner Brothers. And Warner Brothers was like, nah. I don't feel like doing
that old regime made a lot of stupid decisions.
Okay.
There's a bat in his belfry.
That's not a belfry.
I'm sorry, it's stuck in the clock tower.
Okay.
Anime fan, I was about to suggest Stephen Lang too. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I mean, I would have to accept that. I don't know if there's anyone on the face of the planet that actually looks like Returns Batman.
Well, my top choice for that, and again, he's getting a little old, but I suggested Stephen Lang earlier, but I really want Josh Brolin as an old Batman.
I mean,
that'd make me so happy. But
I'm,
he is
I'm
getting a bit old.
I'm gonna be honest. He's a little young for it, but I think Ben Affleck would have been a perfect Returns Batman, Dark Knight Returns Batman.
Oh sure. I mean, that's what they were going for with the look.
But just imagine him in a straight up Returns adaptation.
Just adaptation, yeah. No, that would have worked. But yeah. So we were talking about the Joker's gang earlier.
I love Ace the Bat Hound.
I love
so
Ace.
good. Just
that's why I picked his episode. Maybe we'll get to it tonight.
Yeah,
Noah just picked episodes with Ace the Bat Hound. It's like, Ace isn't in this episode. That doesn't work for me, brother.
I mean, he is in a lot of the episodes that are on the list.
So how long do you guys think that it's been since the first scene where Bruce is still fighting, but like you kind of get the sense that he can't do this anymore, and where we are now? Because it seems like Gotham has kind of gotten worse, even though Batman's still around or was still around.
I mean, it is 20 years after that.
Yeah, and I mean, it's definitely gotten worse in his absence.
Oh, okay. So then maybe it's just I didn't realize there's a big time skip between. Okay.
Yeah, because if you look at Bruce right now, he's way older than he was in the prologue.
Yeah,
okay.
So what it is... Okay, so the prologue is 20 years after animated series, so he's like in his 50s, maybe 60s, and then this main show is 20 years after that. So he's around 80.
And what I appreciate about like this and Returns is it's very important that Batman gets old. Because he could very easily use a Lazarus pit or whatever to stay young, but that kind of robs him of that humanity that's so essential to the character.
Well, there's an episode about that.
And he had his Uncle Ben moment.
Yeah, the origin's very Uncle Ben.
Yeah.
Spider-Man.
Yeah. I love the scene where Bruce says to him, "You have to understand, Terry, with great power."
Well, I mean, I don't know if you know this, but Kevin Feige watched this, and that's how they planned out their entire Spider-Man trilogy.
Oh. Yeah, they were like, we can't repeat Batman Beyond.
Well, no, we're going to repeat. So Batman in the MCU case would be Iron Man, and then Terry McGinnis is Peter Parker, and their mentors.
Yeah, you mean Iron Boy.
Well, I mean, if you've never seen the movies before, then you would call them Iron Boy.
But so we've mentioned this before. A big reason why the show works is just the amount of restraint they had and not relying on classic Batman villains and characters. Like, how easy would it have been to just like, okay, we're gonna use an old Batman villain for the pilot, then we'll slowly ease into some Terry villain. Nope, like we are setting up Terry's arch nemesis in this pilot.
I think that's a positive, but there's also that negative of how many, other than Blight, how many of the villains created for the show are that memorable?
I like a few of them. I like Ink. I like Shriek.
Okay, but liking them is different than memorable. How many of them have stayed in the pop culture?
But that's a different question. Like,
I asked how many of them were memorable.
But that's the difference. Is Batman's rogues galleries had been around for like 50 years before this show.
Yes.
And this is in this show. These are really the only versions that you see of those characters.
Yes.
But I would argue that for the common man, if you ask them about the joke, well, at least the Joker, 9 out of 10 people are going to remember the animated series version of the Joker. Ask them about any of.
Are you talking about people in our circles or people in general?
Just people in general.
9 out of 10 is pretty high.
I think the average person would go to Ledger before Hamill.
Yes. Ledger, Nicholson.
Ooh. Maybe I'm out of touch, but
yeah.
I don't buy it. People would go to. Well, maybe.
At this point, a lot of people my age didn't grow up with the animated series, and they probably saw The Dark Knight first.
I'm just old. Leave me alone.
Yeah, you're old, man. Go live in your Wayne Manor.
I will.
And also, like, outside of the comics, like, we haven't done much with this property in over a decade. Like there hasn't been a theatrical movie and video games and
Yeah.
all this stuff. Like these villains haven't really had the opportunity to be in pop culture.
Flourish.
Like you have
Yeah.
to watch the show.
Anyway,
basically to
I
know
don't
this
want to
one
get
block.
stuck on this topic.
You brought
We-
it up.
Okay, I understand that, but my point is, we just talked over the ending of the pilot with having nothing to say about the end of the pilot.
Are we? We're gonna start with timestamp 0 on episode 2.
Yeah, let me pull it up.
Okay.
So I have conflicted feelings about just the first half of the pilot because, like, it is only part 1.
It's mostly setup.
Yeah. I feel like the general audiences know the live action. Yeah, I mean, I guess at this point, but I don't know. I feel like most people still think of Hamill, and part of that is because he's jumped mediums.
I think it depends on when you grew up. Like I didn't grow up with Batman the Animated Series airing, but I had the DVDs, so I did grow up with the show. But most people my age didn't. They grew up with later versions, so.
All right, so we are on season 1, episode 2. This is the second part of the pilot. I think these are both called the same thing, aren't they?
Rebirth Part 2, yeah.
Yeah, so Rebirth. All right, does everybody have it up to timestamp 0?
Yes, I do.
Hang on a sec. All right, in 3, 2, 1, go. So yeah, I mean, so it kind of is already playing like Bruce, doesn't want Terry to come back, but Terry knows that he's Batman now, and it's kind of setting him, oh, this is going to be our new Batman.
Mm-hmm. Well,
previously on the episode you just watched.
Well, we've talked about this before. Part of what's really sad about the status quo of the show is that the Joker seems to be more remembered than Batman. Just with this Joker gang running around, and now Joker's mythologized because he's been dead for 40 years.
Or has he?
Yes,
actual Joker. Actual Joker's been dead.
But yeah, that's just like really cool and interesting to me that like the Joker has permeated Gotham more than Batman.
I like that I was jokingly asking if he was dead because of the movie, and Robert's just like, yes, he is.
He's dead, damn it.
It's dead. I saw it happen.
So the other thing I will say is some of the like, it looks like there's some 3D animation going on in this opening title sequence.
Yeah.
Has not held up.
No, but I think it's charming. Yeah, I like it. And
it's not the worst.
Darwin Cook worked on this intro.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and you can see some of Cook's work influence throughout the show. Like Terry's like main love interest is very Cook.
Mm-hmm.
You like only has hardcore Batman. No. You're not going to sit there and tell me the general audiences don't know Conroy. No.
He's right.
No.
Yeah,
unfortunately.
I don't think my dad knows who Kevin Conroy is.
I don't know. I mean, maybe there's a percentage out there, but I feel like at this point, like, even because like I said, because they jumped mediums, people know, Hamill and Conroy.
And people in our circles.
Yeah. Like don't
make me sad tonight.
No.
I mean, I don't see that as necessarily a sad thing, but anyway, I always forget that Terry never gets into the Batman costume in the first part. That really takes until the second part for that to happen.
Interestingly, that's very Bendis-y for like Ultimate Spider-Man, because that takes forever for him to get a spider suit in that book.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, I always misremember part 1 ending with Terry stealing the suit, but it doesn't. That comes in this one. And here we get one of those really awkward close-ups on the suit where it still has the teeth for some reason, and I don't like
Yeah,
it.
why does
Why does it have teeth?
I don't
Why
like
is it
that?
Why is it grimacing at you?
Anime fan, I had to explain to my family who Kevin Conroy was. Yeah, well, they're missing out.
Yeah,
So
I don't think my sister knew who Kevin Conroy was until I explained it to her.
So speaking of Conroy, he plays older Bruce Wayne brilliantly because it's like a third voice that he uses for Batman.
It's more along the lines of the voice that he uses in Justice League
Yes.
than in the original Batman the Animated Series. He's really good in the original show, but I feel like at this point he's more come into the role and kind of got a hang on of it.
Anime fan, it's interesting how Sherman Howard, who voiced Derek Powers, was the second runner-up for Lex Luthor in Superman the Animated Series.
Oh,
Cool.
interesting. I didn't know that.
Glad he got it here.
He's basically kind of a Lex Luthor type character.
I don't know if I can see anybody but Clancy Brown voicing that Lex.
Yeah,
Yeah.
If you lose your job to Clancy Brown, like that's fair. That's not something you get. Like, oh, they picked Clancy Brown. Well, I can't be upset about that.
Yeah, I mean, I think he's just as iconic as like Kevin Conroy and Mark Hamill are in their respective roles for that role.
Well, and Blight, we should say, is inspired by a Batman character. Like, this is loosely based on the villain Phosphorus from the comics back in the day, but they make him green. I think he's like orange. They kind of do Phosphorus in an episode of the Batman, but we will soon see Phosphorus or Dr. Phosphorus on the Creature Commandos show. I think that's the character that Alan Tudyk's playing. But he looks just like this. He's just not green. But Derek Powers is a very different character from who that character is in the comics. But they do rework a couple of comic characters into the show. Like Spellbinder's a big one. We'll see if we get to a Spellbinder episode, but like that's based on a Batman villain, just an updated, different take on him, which I think works.
Anime fan says I feel like Clancy Brown's more known for Mr. Krabs. I mean, that's again just circles. I knew he was Lex Luthor, and it took me an embarrassingly long time to realize that he was Mr. Krabs.
Yeah.
He's also the principal in that shitty Nightmare on Elm Street remake, which I can't wait to make Noah watch again.
Ugh. Let's watch that's not a horror movie, but let's watch Shawshank Redemption instead.
You know, I don't know if I've seen that.
He's in that. He's like the main prison guard.
I was a Green Mile kid growing up. I don't know if
Shawshank's great.
And I still have to see that.
I don't know if the complexity of that movie fully hit me as a kid, but I loved it. That movie's also sad. Don't watch it if you're sad.
Yeah. Damn it! So I shouldn't watch it.
So Terry is in the Batsuit.
Yeah.
Clancy Brown voiced Mr. Freeze in The Batman. We are going to do something on that soon because this is the 20th anniversary this year.
Yeah, we'll probably do a watch party on that.
What I think might be cool to do is to do like this kind of commentary on like a show every couple of months. Because if I upload one video a week of these commentaries, that'll give us probably a month's worth of content. So then we can keep that going for like a second day of uploads.
Yeah. Well, and the reason we're even doing this in the first place is that it was the 25th anniversary in January, I think.
Okay. So, I couldn't remember. I just remember that I brought it up because I'd been in a Beyond mood, but I couldn't remember if it was an anniversary or.
Yeah, this is one of the first
we talked about doing it anyway. Yeah. So we should definitely tackle the Batman at some point.
Maybe we can do that after Phantasm.
Yeah, I'd be down.
So I first saw this pilot when I was like 4, 5. It's very violent or very dark.
Yeah.
And this stuff stuck with me as a kid.
Rewatching it, I was surprised to see that bit with like the sheep and all this stuff.
Well, and it's interesting how this show could really push some of those limits that I don't think other comic book animated shows of the time could.
Right.
Yeah, not
Like even X-Men is very tame compared to this stuff.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, when it's something where you'd hear the premise of this show, like that it's a future Batman and he's a kid this time, and you'd think like, oh, maybe it's a watered down version of the animated series. This show is arguably darker than Batman the Animated Series, or maybe like
I
on
think
that
it's
same
definitely
level.
darker.
Yeah, there are some disturbing episodes of this show.
Oh yeah. If we
I
get to
think-
Earth Mover, it's gonna be a fun one.
Yeah,
I think Return of the Joker alone is darker than anything in TAS.
Yeah.
yeah. So it's like they didn't hold back. They
And that was a TV movie, right?
Well-
I think it was straight to DVD or video.
It was okay, granted, the version of Return of the Joker you've probably watched or most familiar with is the PG-13 version. There was a censored, watered down PG version that was originally released, and that's what I grew. But then they later
Yeah,
got
but isn't the
PG-13
only difference with that how Joker dies?
yes,
Some of the violence is cut down, from what I've seen, but that's the major difference.
they really downplay Tim's torture sequence.
Okay.
That
So,
plays a
how do
longer-
you feel
but
about
still,
this being a more high tech Batman? He's not really a detective like Bruce or a fighter like Bruce. He's not unskilled, certainly, but it seems like the suit does a lot of heavy lifting.
Yes.
A lot of heavy lifting for him.
I'm fine with it just because this is a more futuristic show, so it kind of works with that world. And he's not like a trained martial artist like Bruce was, but he is a skilled fighter still.
Oh,
Yeah,
I
I
remember
think-
the other episode I picked is where they bring Rafe back. Sorry, I had to think about it.
Oh yeah, we just picked all the best episodes tonight.
Is that
Well,
a
we'll
bad
see which ones
episode?
we get. No, it's
No, I'm saying yeah, we just picked
No,
a
I
lot of good ones.
I picked that one on a whim because I hadn't seen it.
That's a good episode, yeah.
Well, just talking about the violence, it's just funny how what Warner Brothers wanted was a more kid-friendly Batman cartoon. It's like, okay, we like what you guys are doing with New Batman Adventures, but what if Batman was a teenager and it was in the future? And we could sell a lot of toys to little kids. Like, that's what Warner Brothers wanted. Like, this isn't a show
Yeah.
they wanted to make. They just made the best version of it they possibly could, and thank God it turned out great.
Yeah,
Like-
and it turned out great, yeah.
And they were like, okay, well, screw you. We're going to go darker and heavier than we could on the last show.
Yeah, and I mean,
Because
based
it
on that
can't.
description, that is like a futuristic Batman show where he's a teenager. That is technically what they made. They just made it
Mhm.
really good.
Anime fan says, "Will you ever do commentaries on the old Batman cartoons by Filmation?" Yeah, probably.
Maybe, yeah. I've never
Hope
seen
so.
those.
Definitely down the line, I'm sure stuff like The Batman and Brave and Bold will be more of a priority, but like it'll happen at some
Yeah.
We got a lot of Batman shows to
And
cover.
we'll prioritize the Batman and then sometime do Brave and the Bold. But we'll definitely
Well,
do
I
Brave and
mean,
the Bold.
shit. At the rate we're going, by the time we do the Batman, that new Cape Crusader show will be out, and I want to do something on
Oh
that.
yeah.
That's true.
How do you want to do you want to handle that as the episodes come out?
So I was thinking, I don't have much idea past the pilot. Yo, what's up, AMC? But the pilot drops a Thursday night. That's when Robert and I usually do our Last of Us. But if you guys can, in advance, free yourselves up that night, I'd like to do maybe just a commentary that night.
Okay.
And
Or
just
we
in term of our Last of Us. This is going to be interesting. I'm just going to warn you guys, I am getting drunk.
No, we're
I
not
don't
even
have
2
any
episodes
alcohol
in.
with me. We're gonna do a drunk stream.
Oh. So I apologize in advance. But we'll talk about more about what we do with Cape Crusader later.
Yeah, we're talking shop on the channel. Sorry.
Yeah, that'll be.
And
under August.
now the generic goons try to take down the Batman. I feel like Batman Beyond's the heaviest DCAU show. I was terrified of Flight as a kid. It's up there. Honestly, I think, I don't know if it's the heaviest, it's the darkest. But I think on terms of an emotional heavy, I think Justice League is still the heaviest. Or mostly Justice League
Yeah.
Unlimited.
Well, even
It
Justice
depends on
League.
the episode you're looking at.
Justice League gets emotionally heavy with like Starcrossed and those episodes. I'd say this is definitely the heaviest in terms of being dark
Like in just terms of violence.
and violence.
This is what
James.
Nolan should have made if he wanted to make James Bond Batman.
Yeah. Although I do like the first two Nolan movies.
No, I mean I do too, but I'm just saying like
Right.
some of that stuff that you could tell he really wants to do that's just Bond stuff, I think makes more sense with Terry.
Mm-hmm.
That's interesting. But well, and Terry as a character I think works because obviously, well, there's many Spider-Man parallels with Peter Parker. I've always seen Terry as kind of a cross between Peter Parker and Jason Todd. Because he has a lot more of that Jason Todd edge. Like he's a juvie kid, he gets in a lot of trouble and fights.
Are you saying he's an edgelord?
Yeah, a little bit.
Yeah,
at the start of the show.
Yeah. No,
I mean, I can definitely see it.
Todd if he was likable.
Yeah.
Also, Bunk goes out different in the edited version. I'm assuming Bunk is.
Oh yeah, that's correct.
Okay. That's the goon that Joker shoots in the PG-13 version.
You killed Captain Clown.
It was I who killed Captain Clown.
They should put Captain Clown in this show.
That would be great. In AI.
Yeah.
Ooh,
yeah.
How about a Hardak Captain Clown team up where Hardak like resurrects Captain Clown?
Yeah.
And takes him over to fight Batman.
I watched a whole movie of that.
Mm-hmm.
No, so I'm noticing this late now after I mentioned that thing about Nolan. I do kind of dig the more James Bondy vibe of this Batman. He's more of a spy than a superhero.
He's got more gadgets.
Yeah.
Or at least not necessarily.
It's not gadgets, flying; it's falling with style.
Yeah, his suit is way more high tech than Bruce's, obviously.
But I'm a sucker for black and red, so like the suit is.
Yeah, it's a really cool suit.
This and the Nightwing suit in New Batman Adventures, like I'm sure they were looking at the symbiote Spider-Man suit for inspiration, where it's just all black with a big logo on the chest with the white eyes. Like I'm sure that's what they were looking at.
I mean, the Nightwing suit is just the Nightwing suit.
Not in the comics at that time.
Yeah, it was.
They definitely. I'm more talking about specifically how the animated version.
I understand that, but it's other than the mullet, the actual costume is almost straight out of the Chuck Dixon run.
I'm curious. Does the Chuck Dixon run come out before or after '97? Because I actually don't know.
I actually don't know either. I just know that they're 90s. And it's way better than that god-awful, like, first costume that he wears.
Well, in the early 90s, he still had, like, all blue and yellow. But anyway, besides from Nightwing, we're talking about the Spider-Man connections with Batman Beyond. Again, like, I'm sure the symbiote suit was an influence on this design.
AMC says, I see Terry's a halfway point between Dick and Bruce. Yeah, I can kind of see that. But there's definitely some Jason Todd in there. But to be fair, like even in New Batman Adventures, Dick Grayson had a bit of an edge to him as well.
Yes.
Right.
They gotta just take Jason Todd and we're not gonna do him, but he's gonna be like in part of every Robin.
Yeah. Well, they give Jason's backstory to Tim, but
which is weird.
Yeah, but personality-wise, Terry's much closer to Jason.
Like, if you can't do Jason, if you don't want to do Jason, just don't do Jason.
I mean, I feel like Tim is pretty much Jason's personality as well in that show. But I don't know.
I mean, I think by changing, like, Tim's origin, you fundamentally change that character, at least to some degree.
Yeah, he's Tim in name only, but I still like that Tim.
Yeah.
Remember when people liked Tim and like DC knew what to do with him?
Yep.
Yeah. This is something that kind of is one of the more dated aspects of the show that might not translate to modern audience, kind of what we were talking about earlier, but At the same time, I love the music of this show. It's very like it
Yeah, I
feels very
mean,
90s, but
I guess I'm
it's
gonna
still
be
good.
that guy. Like back when we had actual good music in TV, not just shitty synthesizer beats over a.
Yeah. I
I don't know,
mean,
like they used instruments.
I don't watch enough
Yeah.
modern TV to judge, but yeah, I think I see what you mean.
Even though I think that Bruce Wayne and John Blake are the only people worthy of being Batman, I think that Terry. Oh wait,
John
John
Blake.
Blake of all people?
Oh, you mean
Okay.
Robin?
I like the name.
You should use your real name.
Rise is going to be interesting because that movie sucks.
Oh
I like that
boy.
movie.
Robert and I will be the defend. I'll be a more lukewarm defender.
Yeah, it'll be the
I don't,
flip or BVS commentary.
I don't love that movie. Yeah.
Well, and reading Vengeance of Bane made me dislike their Bane even more.
Although speaking of music, actually, this scene is the one. There's the one piece of music in this scene is. I feel like it's a little out of place.
Oh, I've
It's
always
like
liked it.
it doesn't sound like the rest of the score of the show. It's very
Yeah.
Oh,
strange.
AMC. Okay, so AMC says that they do Jason and the Adventures Continue. That doesn't count. That's all
like
extra material.
I read the
30
first
years
few.
later.
The
I read the first.
DCAU is whatever was airing at the time. Batman, The New Adventures, Justice League Unlimited, Superman, and this Batman Beyond.
I read the first few issues of that, and I wasn't really invested in it enough to keep reading.
Yeah,
I don't. Is that even Paul Dini or?
it is Paul Dini.
It's Paul
No
Dini
disrespect.
and yeah, no disrespect to Paul Dini and Alan Burnett. I think also worked on that.
Well, I mean, okay. So I'm gonna be honest. Like, I love Bruce Timm. I love Paul Dini. But even in their heyday, they were hit and miss. Like, there's a lot of bad new animated series. Let's be
There's a lot of
honest.
bad animated series. Yeah,
Yeah,
the show's a
Dini
little
had
bit more consistent, but
yes, though Dini had a good batting average. If you just want to look
Yeah.
at episodes that he's credited for, he had a very good batting average on that show.
right.
So
This
I
scene
do
horrified
remember.
me as a child.
So I do
Yeah, it's
remember
creepy.
my first introduction to this character was the Burger King toy,
Oh yeah.
That's awesome.
and it had like the power suit, and then it could like break open, and it was the.
Oh, that's awesome.
That's cool. Yeah. Um, that scene is definitely evokes Batman '89 a little bit. It's not exactly the same, but it reminds me of it with the Joker when he sees his face.